So I made this very long video to explain the process of making a custom key map for Blender, showing you how I make the hybrid keys key map. Unfortunately, it's taken so long to record and edit this video that I started recording in 4.0 and Blender have released 2 whole versions since. Now, all the footage is still from 4.0, but aside from some new hotkeys, the process hasn't really changed. So you can still follow along and use this as a general guide for making your own key map. When you open a new install of Blender for the first time, you'll see this setup panel. There's an option here that allows you to import your settings from a previous Blender version. Now, this might seem tempting, but it's better to avoid this because you may import obsolete settings from the old version that could conflict with changes in this latest version. Especially when creating a custom key map, it's better to start fresh with default settings. So let's leave all this alone and click here. And now you can see it goes to the regular splash screen, and this is the one you'll be seeing anytime you start up Blender after this. And now we can just click anywhere and start configuring. So first thing we're going to do is go into Blender, and here we have the default scene. So now we go into Edit, Preferences, and then into Key Map over here, and we collapse this. And then we're going to go in here and create a new key map based on the default one. We're going to call this temp for now. All right, so we want to start with the view hotkeys. So let's go into 3D view global, and then go down here, and then we have rotate view middle mouse. Now, there's 2 ways of changing the hotkey here. You can click here, and then it says press a key, and what we want is Alt left mouse. So we can just hold down Alt and then click the left mouse. And so now you can see there's this new icon over here, which is actually for restoring a hotkey to the default that you've just changed. So we can click on this and it will go back to the original setting. So what if we do this again, and then instead of holding down Alt, we just press the left mouse button, and then we go and press Alt here. And so you get the same result. So that's 2 ways of doing this. It doesn't really matter which way you do. Okay, so that's one. Let's go for pan, which is over here. And also you can see you have the Python commands for each of these functions in this view here. All right, so now we have pan. We want to go with Alt middle mouse here. And then let's do zoom view. And here we want to say Alt right mouse. And so that should be everything, shouldn't it? So now if we go here, we can rotate with Alt left mouse, we can pan with Alt middle mouse, and zoom with Alt right mouse. Also, you'll notice it's zooming vertically right now, which if you're used to Maya, you might prefer zooming horizontally, and you can actually change that in here in navigation, and you can set the zoom axis to horizontal. So now you can zoom like so. All right, so let's go back to the key map again. So now we have these 3 things that are all the view hotkeys. Or are they? Because if we close this for a minute and we go to, let's say, the image editor, you'll find that if you go into the 2D view, you can't actually use the same hotkeys that you just configured, because these hotkeys are dependent on what mode you're in. The same thing for the dope sheet. You can use middle mouse button for panning, but you cannot do zooming with Alt right mouse like you just configured. and you also can't pan with Alt middle mouse. All right, so what gives? Why can't we use our hotkeys that we just set in other modes? Well, the thing is, all these hotkeys are specific only to the 3D view. So if you go into View 2D, you'll see there's a whole separate set of hotkeys for the camera in this mode. We have middle mouse pan, and we also have shift middle mouse pan. Now let's leave this one here because it's actually kind of nice to have both options. But we want to change the shift middle mouse panning to alt middle mouse. And let's see, we also have zooming down where, zoom 2D view, control middle mouse. So we're going to change that to alt right mouse. And so that should take care of both 2D and 3D views. And so we've got View 2D here. Interestingly, View 2D does not actually cover the image editor. So if we want to go to image global, here we're going to change this to alt middle mouse. We're going to change zoom view, control middle mouse. This one, we're going to change this one to alt right mouse. And now it should be all good. So View 2D, 3D view, and image. That should be everything, but just to be sure, we're going to do a search for pan view. And then we see here we have middle mouse and alt middle mouse for View 2D. We have trackpad, but that's fine. We're going to leave that alone. We have View 2D button, middle mouse. And now we see, actually we missed one. We forgot the clip editor. And so we're going to go into this one and say shift middle mouse. So here, just to demonstrate what you shouldn't do, and this is kind of a UX nightmare. If we want to change this one to alt middle mouse, we can't just remove the shift key. We have to press the alt modifier first and then do the shift key, because then it's alt middle mouse. Because if we do it the other way around, you'll see what happens. If we remove shift, it deletes the hotkey. Why? Okay, why this happens is because there is already a middle mouse hotkey in the clip editor in this mode for this function. And so it just deletes that one because it already exists. Now, we don't actually want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to click restore here, and then it brings back that hotkey that we had before, the default one. And so what we're going to do instead is we can either do the alt and then middle mouse, or if we restore this, we can also do alt and then remove shift afterwards. And then we have alt middle mouse like we want. All right, so that's clip editor. And let's also not forget about View 2D button. This one has the middle mouse button, but it doesn't have the other one. So what we could do is go into, close the search there. We can go into View 2D buttons list. And so here you can see there's just the one middle mouse pan view, but there is also the control middle mouse zoom view. So let's do that one first, alt or right mouse. And then we're going to go into here and we're going to copy the Python command and then add new, create an empty hotkey, copy paste that, and then click it like that. And then we say here, we want this to be alt middle mouse. And so now we have the complete set for View 2D buttons list as well. All right, so now let's check again, pan view. That should be everything. We've got View 2D here. We've got View 2D button. We've got clip editor as well. And now we do, let's say we do rotate view. Okay, and here it's only in the 3D view, and so we already have that one. Alt left mouse. What about zoom view? We have the 3D view, alt right mouse. We have the image mode, alt right mouse. And we also have, wait, we forgot 2D view? That's interesting. So let's check view 2D. Where's the zoom? Huh, that's interesting. What if we, okay, so what if we do is search for zoom? We have view 2D, zoom 2D view, right, okay. And we have alt right mouse, we have 3D view, alt right mouse, and we have image, alt right mouse, and these are all fine. Oh wait, we forgot once again about the clip editor. So let's just change that one to alt right mouse. All right, so for now we've done all the view stuff. So let's just, for the moment, export this to a temporary file. Let's save this as temp.py, export keyform configuration. All right, so now just to test, we're going to check if this is working okay. So now we should be able to rotate the camera with alt left mouse, pan with alt middle mouse, zoom with alt right mouse, and this should also work in any 2D mode. So let's check the image editor. We can do middle mouse, or we can do alt middle mouse. We can zoom with alt right mouse, and let's also go to the clip editor. Same thing, alt middle mouse, alt right mouse, middle mouse still works. Let's also try the dope sheet. Now we can do middle mouse pan, but we can also do alt right mouse zoom. We can do alt middle mouse pan. And let's do the graph editor. We can do middle mouse. We can do alt middle mouse. We can do alt right mouse zoom. And yep, that's it. All right, so that works. All right, so you always want to check if your hotkeys are working as you expect. So this all seems fine. Next, we're going to do these hotkeys. We're going to go to the Edit, Preferences, and we're actually going to search by key binding this time. So let's go for this one, the View Pie menu. So we want to change the tilde. And this is misleading actually because you always think of this button, but the key without shift is actually this button, so it looks like this key. All right, and so here we have the View Pie menu, and this is the Python command, and this is the customization, and we're going to change this to this button instead. So that's the one next to your Enter key in most keyboards. All right, so let's go here and we go to this one and then we press this button. And then you see, because it's a search, it disappears from the search because it's no longer using this key. So now it's no longer listed. And so we do this for each mode. So dope sheet, press this key, pose. This is a different thing, so we're leaving that alone. Here we have the same thing again, view, call pie menu, so we're going to change this one into the 3D view, and we're going to say UV editor. This is a different thing, we're going to leave that alone. We're going to go to the graph editor here, we're going to change it to this. Basically all the ones that are just this little key are the ones that we want to change. So we're going to say image generic. See here, it's still the same thing, call pie menu. Change that one. Node editor, again, just go through all of these, but only the ones with just this key, not the control or the shift ones. Leave those alone. Go there, sequencer, sequencer previous. What is this? Prev. I can't read this. Whatever. I'm gonna change that one as well. Clip, same thing. All right. So now these are all fine. We're gonna leave those. Now, if we do a search for this key, we should be able to see all the ones that we changed. See, so here we have every single view pie menu. That's this key now. All right, so that's good. Next one is the orientation pie menu. So we're going to do search for comma, and here we see it's only really in the 3D view. So because this is something different, we're going to leave that alone. This also something else. So it's only this one in the 3D view. We can also actually try and find this key in the category itself. So we cancel the search, we go into 3D view. If you scroll all the way down here, we have call pie menu orientation. And so we change this to this key. So we also want to change the pivot pie menu. So that's the period key. So we're going to do a search for that. Key binding period. What we're looking for is the pivot point. So here we have one in the 3D view. We're going to change this to this key. All right, so let's make this one this one. All right, so that one's gone. And now let's see. Here we have another pivot point, graph editor. We're going to change that one to the same thing. Here in the image category, we also have one pivot point. Change that one. And go through all of this. Sequencer prev, pivot point, change that one. And clip editor also, pivot points. And change that one. And that should be all of them. Okay, so and now if we do another search for key binding, if we do this, here we see all the categories for this pivot point hotkey, the pie menu, and we do this one, we see just the 3D view orientation. And now we can test this out. If we go into the view, if we hold down this button, the /, you can change the view. If we hold down the quotation marks, we can change the pivot point. And if we hold down the semicolon, we can change the space, the orientation space. Next, we want to change quick favorites. And so let's do a search for quick favorites here. And you can see this one is Q, and now you can see the reason why we want to change these ones first, because this key uses Q, and we want to use Q for selection. So let's now change this to the tilde key over here. And so now if we go here, we can hold down, or we can press this, and it goes to quick favorites. All right. So next thing we're going to do the transforms, move, rotate, and scale, and also select. And the easiest way to do these actually is to use the toolbar and do right click and then assign shortcut and then press a key, Q. And then the next one, move, assign shortcut, W, assign shortcut, E, and scale, assign shortcut, R. Okay, but now we run into a problem, because if we now press these keys to test if they work, Q, so Q for select, that works, W for move, that works, E for rotate, and then R for, oh wait, scale doesn't seem to work, does it? This is because it's still using the old rotation hotkey. Now, we don't want that, so what we're going to do is we're going to go into the keymap and do a search for R. And now we can see all these hotkeys that are using R to rotate in all these modes. So for now, we have the hotkeys for the 3D view, but we also, for object mode, but we also need to do edit mode separately because it has its own set of hotkeys. So we need to do Q here, we need to do W here, and E and R, and then we also go into, separately, we go into the UV editor, and if I recall correctly, here we have the same thing where we need to create a separate, as you can see, there's no shortcut yet, so we need to create a separate Q hotkey for this, assign W, and then assign E, assign R. Okay, so if we select all of these real quick, and now we try Q, W, E, and R, you notice it's the same problem as the 3D view. It's got the rotation hotkey on R, but it also has a new problem because E is rotate, that's correct, but W is not move, it's cycling through the select hotkeys instead. So we also need to fix that. That's this one. So before we do that though, we're going to finish up all the toolbar hotkeys. So we've got UV editor. So we also need to do in the 3D viewport, we're going to real quick delete this cube and then add an armature, and then we go into pose mode, and here we have the same thing. We have to assign Q, we have to assign W, E, and R, and again, same issue here with rotate. Also edit mode for skeletons, same story again, Q, W, E, R, and and here also, actually, interestingly, we're going to get to this later, E is actually extrude, so we're going to replace that one also, but we'll get to that. Again, this is, all these conflicts is why this is such a messy process. We need to do this correctly. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into preferences, look for W, and now we can see here W, a lot of set tool by name. These are new hotkeys that we've created with the assigning a shortcut. That's good. This is the move tool, set to W. This is what we want. However, we also have a few that are not what we want. This one is mesh. This is also good. We want this one. We want this one as well. This one is correct. But this one is not correct. So we're going to delete this one because this one is actually cycling through the select box. So delete that one. In the UV editor, here we see we have two W keys, and one is the select box and the other one is built-in move, is the one we want. So we want this one to be deleted. And then we go into the rest and we see here we have another select box cycling thing. And the node editor, same thing. Let me delete this one. Okay, so now we want to fix the conflict for rotate R and scale S. Now, you might think the easiest way to do this is to just do a search for R and just remove all these hotkeys. However, that's actually not ideal because not all modes have gizmos. What we want to do is only delete the ones for the modes where it's actually conflicting with the gizmos and leave the other ones alone for now. And then the other ones, we're going to just replace those directly with the same letters, but without the gizmo. So what we do then is go into all of these modes: object mode, mesh, transform modal map, UV editor, pose mode, armature edit, and grease pencil edit. And there we're going to just remove those hotkeys completely. So let's go to object mode, which is in 3D view. And here we have move, rotate, and resize. And so we just delete those completely. And then we go into the next one, which is mesh. It's also in 3D view, mesh global. And here we have GRS, move, rotate, resize, delete, delete, delete. And then we go for transform modal map down here. I think we're just gonna remove only this one, but leave this one. So delete that one, rotate, and then resize, and also trackball. Actually, trackball is, yeah, no, let's not do that. So that's gone. And what else? UV editor, pose mode, armature edit, and grease pencil edit. So let's go to image, UV editor global. Here we have the same thing, GRS, delete, and then go into 3D view again, armature global, GRS, delete, delete, delete. What else? Grease pencil global, no, not global. Grease pencil edits. So here again, GRS, delete those. I almost forgot pose mode, so let's do that one. Pose mode, pose global, and here we delete all of these. GRS. So that should be all the ones that we want to remove completely, and that should take care of all the conflicts. However, we're not done yet. We also want to replace all the ones for the modes that don't have gizmos. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just do a search for key binding, G, and then we see there's a bunch more hotkeys here for all the different modes for G, move, or grab. So let's just change all of these to W. Dope sheet, transform. Of course, let's leave these alone because this is something else. Let's go here, paint curve, move. All right. Here we have curves. I don't know why curve and curves are two different categories. That's just weird, but okay. So let's change this one. Let's leave this one alone because this is brush select, that's something different. Move, W, lattice, W, particle, W. Here we have toggle gradient, let's leave that alone, that's something different. Mask editing, W. And that was the edge slide one, we can leave that alone. Toggle gravity, that's something different. Graph editor, I need to change that one to move, W. And node editor, move and attach. Yeah, all right, let's change that to W. This one also. NLA editor, transform. Yep, translation, W. And sequence slide in the sequencer, that's W. That's a different name, same thing, also just move. Sequencer preview, move, W. Clip editor, move. And clip graph editor, move. All right, so that's all of those. Next, let's do R rotate. That leaves a bunch here, so let's see, rotate paint curve. Let's make that E. And here we have an R, but that's set to by name, that's scale, that's the one we want, so keep that one. Let's see, curve rotates R, that should be E. Curves rotates E again. Din topo detail size, that's something different. Let's leave that alone. Set tool by name, mesh, scale, no, that's good. Armature again, that's the one we changed already. Metaball rotates. So let's just look for rotates everywhere, right? So lattice rotates R, change to E. Particle rotates again. Edit minimum distance, something different, let's leave that. UV editor again, that's the scale again, we changed that correctly. Mask editing rotates E, graph editor rotate E, and then node editor, same thing, rotate E, and that's, I think, most of them. Sequencer, rotate E, clip editor, rotate E, clip graph editor, rotate E, okay. And lastly, let's do a search for S for scale. And now this one doesn't conflict yet with anything we've done so far, but it will conflict with S insert key, which we're going to add later. So let's remove these as well. Dope sheet transform. So that should be, okay, so that's time scale. That should be R. Again, all of this is to make it as consistent as possible so we can make it make more sense. Resize again, let's change that to R. For some reason, the scale hotkeys are called resize instead of scale, but whatever. Maybe it would make more sense if they made the naming more consistent, like clear scale and scale, right? I don't know why it's like this, but here we are. So resize, another one, R, and curves, resize, R. Sculpt, brush select, S, that's something else, so we're leaving that alone. What else? Resize, metaball, let's change that to R. Lattice, resize, R. Particle, resize, R. And this is something else. Leave that alone. Mask editing, resize R. View, fly mode, walk mode, let's leave that alone. Graph editor, resize R. Node editor, resize R. Transform, wait, time scale, yeah, let's change that to R as well. And also slip strips, sequencer, not sure about that one, let's leave that one alone. Resize, that one is definitely scale, so let's change that to R. And clip editor, resize R. Clip graph editor, resize R. And that should be all of them. So as you can see, we can now do the transform hotkeys without any conflicts from the old GRS hotkeys. Same thing in the edit mode, except for extrude, which we'll get to later. But rotate R is no longer an issue because that's now scale. So if we do that, that works. Q, select, W is move, and E will be rotate once we've resolved the extrude conflict. Pose mode, same deal. QWER also works, no conflict. So here we have QWER, same difference. That works, no conflict. And edit mode. Here it's the same thing as the armature. E is currently extrude, so we're going to fix that later. But the R hotkey is now scale as it should be. Oh yeah, let's also go into UV editor. Here we have QWER. That's good, that works. That's all correct. But what about all the modes without gizmos? All right, let's just real quick set some keys so we have something to work with. All right, so let's check the dope sheet. Now we can see if we press W here, that works. And E obviously doesn't do anything because, or E is E is the same, but there's no rotation in the dope sheet. And R is currently still set to keyframe type. We should probably fix that later. And in the graph editor, we have these keys. We can use W for move, and we can use E. Wait. Wait, did I not do that one? Oh, actually, yeah, I forgot to remove this one. Okay, so now it should be good. So W is move and E is rotate. That works. And R is scale. Yep, that works. All right. And if we go to the shader editor, interestingly, you can move these as well separately. And you can even rotate nodes like this, which is not sure what purpose this serves, but it's there. Or you can scale like this. So yeah, as you can see, there's no hotkeys here for these, except actually this one. We can add Q to this one, but there's no move, rotate, or scale gizmo. But there are the direct manipulation hotkeys, so that's why we want to replace these, because there's no other option there. And same thing in the video sequencer. If we add a movie clip, W is move, E doesn't, or E is, hang on. E is extend, and R is scale, so that sets the speed. All right, so now we're finally going to fix extrude. So we're going to change all the extrude E hotkeys to Shift E in all the modes, so as to resolve the conflict with rotate E. And so we're going to change this one, extrude points, to Shift E, and also extrude curve and move, Shift E. And here you notice we have a normal extrude on Alt E and extrude and move on normals on E. And so we want to leave this one and change this one to Shift E. And also we have extrude armature, so that's bone extrusion, so that's bones, Shift E. But now you notice we have another Shift E for this, and we can't have both of them. And so we're going to change this to Control E instead. And so that should be all of them. However, there is one conflict that we need to take care of. If we do a search for edge crease, you'll see this hotkey also uses Shift E, and that conflicts with extruding edges. So we want to get rid of this one. And so that should be everything. Let's just close this. So now, if we go into edit mode, we should be able to do Q, W, E, and R. So select, move, rotate, and scale. And same thing for if we make an armature, delete this real quick, armature, tab, select, move, rotate, and scale. Next thing, we're going to look at the object submodes. I like adding this because it's just kind of nice to have, and it makes it a little more like 3ds Max also. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into edit preferences, go into, let's see, where is this? Object non-modal, that's the one. We're going to not touch these. What we're going to do is add new, and then copy the Python command. Object mode set with submode, and then you can see here it's got all the sub options. So what we want is object mode. So we're going to start with 1. So we want edit mode, vertex 1. And then we're going to add another one, object with submode. Alright, and then we're going to say edit mode again, this time edge, and we're going to make this 2, and then another one, object with submode, edit mode again, and now it's face, and we're making this one 3. And then those are all the sub edit modes, but we also, for the sake of completeness, want a quick way to go directly to object mode. So we're going to say object mode and then 4 for this one. And if you may notice, there's actually a few other modes in here as well, like pose mode. So what we're going to do is we're going to create one more, and here we're going to say pose mode, and we're going to set that one to 5, and that should do it. One thing though is that there are some existing hotkeys that we need to get rid of first. So what we're just going to do is we're going to just search for hide collection, and then we can see it's actually a bunch of these. I actually really dislike these hotkeys to begin with, because it's very easy to accidentally press these and not realize that you've just hidden one of the collections in the outliner. So I don't really want to keep this, not just because it's conflicting, but also just because it's annoying. So we're going to just delete all of these. Delete, delete, delete. But we're gonna leave the Alt and Shift ones, because those are not as easy to accidentally press. Plus, they don't conflict with the mode. So that should be enough. Now, you might be wondering where I got this mystery Python command for all these special hotkeys. The trick is to go to other existing keymaps and check out how they've configured their hotkeys. So for example, we could go into the 3D view of industry compatible, and here we can see they have the alt camera, or for example in object mode they have set tool by name for Q, W, E, R, and T. We open this up, set tool by name, WM tool set by ID, and then it has built-in select box and all that stuff. But as we saw earlier, you can actually configure these more easily by going to the toolbar here. One that you can't easily find that way is set object mode, which you can find here. And so here, if we open this up, we have object set with submode. We can copy that. So if you save this Python command and put it in a text file, then you can reuse that in your own key map. And so we did. And so you can do that for any key map that you like. You can just copy hotkeys that you find useful and reuse them in your own key map. All right, next one. I'm going to go into mesh. Alt left mouse button, loop select. So we're going to make that Control Shift left mouse instead, because Shift Alt is already a different one. So now we're going to have, let's see, Control Shift. Yep, that's loop select. Or the existing one, Shift Alt, is loop select toggle, right? Yep. So keep those. And the other thing is the local view. The fastest way is just to do a search, local view, 3D view. It's numpad slash and just slash, but we want this to be playback, so we're going to delete that one. We want the frames category, which should be somewhere down here. So we have a couple of existing hotkeys here. We want to mostly keep all the existing ones, except we're going to do a few tweaks. All right, so play animation slash, also keep space. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to play animation here. I want to keep that one, but we're going to just copy the Python command and say add new, copy paste, boom, and then we say flash. That takes care of that one. But we also want to make it consistent with play animation, play in reverse. So we're going to add another one. We're going to say play, here we go, play in reverse. And then let's say shift slash for this one. Next previous key. Okay, so switch up and down. Jump to keyframe. For whatever reason, they made up arrow next. And I don't know about you, but when I'm browsing anything like on the internet or in a software program, usually next or more is down instead of up. So this seems very counterintuitive to me. So you can see here, next keyframe for this one and next keyframe is not toggled for this one. So we're going to just untoggle this one and we're going to toggle this one. And now it's switched out. So now down will be next keyframe and up will be previous keyframe. However, we also want to have the little arrow-like keys for the same thing. So we're going to say screen keyframe jump, copy that, and we're going to go down here and add a new one, screen keyframe jump, and then we say uncheck that, and this key, and technically it's the comma, but we mean the little arrowy thing, except we don't want to press shift for this, so just comma is nice. That'll do. And then same thing here, but here we do check this. And you do actually need to click on it because otherwise I don't think it's active. So, okay, now we make this one the period, which is technically meant to be the arrowy thing. All right, so that works for those. Then what we want to do is we want to make S an alternative key for insert keyframe. So we need to actually go through all these modes to add this option. So we're going to go by category. let's actually save this first, just in case. Let's start by going into user interface. Look for insert keyframe. There you go. What we're going to do is we're going to copy this again, insert keyframe buttons, and we want the same setting, so we're going to check all, and we're going to say S there. So that's user interface, but we also need to do outliner. Let's do that one. And you may actually notice, insert keyframe, sometimes, let's see if that's actually the case here. Yeah, you may notice the Python command is actually different for different categories. So you want to be careful to copy the one that's in the correct category, because if you copy one from a different category, it might not work, since it's meant for that category specifically. All right, so make this one S as well. And then what else do we have? We want dope sheet here, global. Let's go to insert keyframes, action keyframe insert. Then we say S. For this one, we want to specify only selected channels in the dope sheet, although we're going to leave it alone for the default I key, so that functionality is unchanged. But for S, we want only selected. All right, so same thing for the graph editor. Global, let's look for I somewhere. Here we go. Graph keyframe insert. Again, you can see different hotkey. So we're gonna paste that one here. And again, only selected channels, and set that to S. All right, then we go to 3D view, object mode, I insert keyframe, there you go. Here it says menu. Let's just keep it simple. Insert yes, and just check this is all the same, I think. Yep. All right. Then we go to pose mode, I believe. Can insert menu here. Add this one. Insert menu S. And mask editing. Where is mask editing? I think that might be over here. Where is the I in that? Insert shape key, all right. S. And then next we have clip editor. And that is actually up there. I insert keyframe, clip keyframe insert. All right. And all of this, of course, is just, you know, it's a big hassle, but it's all to make it more consistent, so that if you have a hotkey in one mode, it should work the same in all the modes. All right, so grease pencil edit, I animation, Let's just copy all of these properties. And so here you notice we have to copy 2 Python commands because we also need the specific one, because otherwise it doesn't know what menu to call. And I think that should be all of those. Okay, also we need the paint mode. No, not paint mode, this one. Yeah, same difference. Call menu, add new, call menu, okay. Alright. S, and which other modes? We also want sculpt mode, I guess. So, alright, yeah, because this also has an I hotkey. So again, call menu. Not the pi one, we want the regular one. And this one, and S. Alright. And I think that should be all of those. No insert keyframes here. We're looking for animation. Nothing. Ooh, maybe here. Yes, actually. So stroke weight mode. So let's just do that one also. Add new. Call menu. You know, just to make things properly consistent. And you might find that in some cases these extra hotkeys are actually unnecessary, or maybe in some cases you will run into other conflicts that you didn't know about. But that is what testing is for. Here we have another one. Which mode is this? Stroke vertex mode. Okay. So add again, call menu, and copy this, and this, and then this one, nothing, nope, 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 nope. Alright, so now I think if we do I here, we should see that they're all expanded. There's no animation that isn't. Yeah, we've done all of those. Alright, export again. Alright, it's useful to save your progress periodically because you never know when something's going to break horribly, so it's always good to have backups. Sometimes, in fact, it's better to not save over the same file and save incremental backups to different files. So, you know, just add like a number to the name or whatever. But we're not doing that here because this is a fairly short process, although although you wouldn't think so with how long this video is taking. Okay. So next, let's look at the grease pencil hotkeys. So let's just open a 2D animation scene. So here you can draw in 2D, as you can see. However, there are a few conflicts in this mode with the hotkeys that we've been making so far. If you press Alt left mouse, you draw a straight line. Of course, so far we've put Alt left mouse as the hotkey for rotate view. So we want to make this consistent, right? So what we do is we go into the hotkey menu again, and then we do a search for Alt left mouse. And so here we see a bunch of hotkeys that are still using Alt left mouse. Now some of these are actually fine because they don't really conflict with the 3D view. For example, there's no view rotation in the dope sheet, so this is fine. We can leave this alone. However, if we look at the grease pencil category, we can see there's a few that are Alt left mouse that actually do conflict with rotating the view in Grease Pencil. You can see this is the Draw Straight Lines hotkey that we were unintentionally pressing just now. So we want to change this to Control-Alt instead. And if we look down here, there's a few more that actually conflict in the same way. For example, normally you can use Alt-Left mouse to draw freehand in a few different modes. So let's do Control-Alt here as well. And this one, select Alt-Left mouse, deselect on nothing. Yeah, let's just make that Control-Alt. Yeah, so changing a hotkey to Shift or Control or Alt to one of the modifier keys is a good way to just temporarily get an existing hotkey out of the way without necessarily deleting it. But if you're sure you want to get rid of it, you can always just X delete a hotkey as well. So let's go over these some more. Let's see, Grease Pencil select. Let's also make this Control-Alt. And Control-Alt is better than Shift-Alt in this case because Shift-Alt is already taken by this hotkey. So let's go here. And then we come to Weight Paint Select. Same deal. Let's change this to Control-Alt. And let's see what else. And so this is the one that we want. This is the one we created. Interestingly, there's also a select in the 3D view. However, it doesn't actually seem to conflict with 3D view rotation at all. So I think it's safe to leave this one alone and just let it be like this. Let's see. Primitive line. Okay, just in case, let's maybe change all these to Control-Alt as well. So Control-Alt. You can always go back and fix these at another point. Yeah, and then there's a few more actually. Loop Select. This is interesting because it's similar to the Mesh hotkey that we changed, but in the UV editor there already is a Control-Alt hotkey, so we can't use that. And there's also a Shift-Alt one. And the UV editor doesn't have 3D rotation, so it doesn't conflict with anything. So we can leave this one alone, same as the dope sheet, Alt-Left mouse. So yeah, this is fine. Let's leave that. Graph editor, same thing, no 3D rotation, no 3D view, so we can leave that alone. Node editor, also. Sequencer, same thing. Node tool, yeah, no, we don't need to change those. 3D view tool, maybe paint face select loop. Yeah, I think we should change that one to Control-Alt. And here again, paint face, Control-Alt, yep. Again, these also Control-Alt. There's a lot of these. I think this one also. And that should be all of them, I believe. So now what we do is we close this. And now we should be able to use Control-Alt for straight lines. But now if we press Alt-Left mouse, as you can see, we rotate out of the camera and into 3D space. And you can see the drawing plane here, which you can still draw on, interestingly. Yeah, all right. So yeah, that works. And we can also test the other modes, but I think that should cover Grease Pencil for now. Even though I've done this several times now, I still don't really fully understand this key map, and so I'm kind of moving things around at the edges to get what I want without disturbing any monsters. Yeah, basically, okay. Basically, my advice is to just change what you need. If you're trying to make your own key map, just focus on changing just the things you want to change and making it consistent across the modes that you use. And don't worry too much about like changing everything in the whole key map. And also, like, if you ever break anything, remember that you can always just click restore on a whole category or on individual hotkeys, or you can import an existing backup that you made earlier. You can even, if you really manage to break Blender somehow, you can always just go to File, Defaults, and do Load Factory Settings. We're not going to do this now because, well, we're going to continue with this, but it's an option. So don't worry too much about it. Just know that you can always fix your mistakes, and the best thing to do is to just try stuff out, see what you can change, see if you like something better a different way, and then just test it. See if it works. If you find something doesn't work, look for conflicts, look for things that use the same hotkey. So for example, if we want to look for conflicts with E, we look for key binding E, and then we see if there's anything else using that exact hotkey. And we might find that some other things are using that key, but in a different mode that doesn't conflict with the mode that you want to change. And so in those cases, it's better to actually just leave that alone for that mode, because why would you change it if it doesn't affect what you're doing in the modes that you're using, especially if you're trying to do what I'm trying to do here, which is to change some things, but mostly keep the defaults. We want to leave as much as possible alone that we don't have to mess with. So yeah, this seems like a good time to check that all the keys that are supposed to be changed have been changed, and I didn't miss anything. And also, while we're at it, we can just test if everything is working as we expect. But before we do that, I'm actually going to go through this whole thing, because it turns out in recent versions of Blender, there's a thing where since version 2.8, they changed it so things are no longer selected on click, but on release. And that can sometimes create kind of an unpleasant delay in selecting. So there's an argument to be made for making selection happen on press. Because if you go into, let's say, 3D view, object mode, let's actually just do a search instead, that's better. Select left mouse. So here you can see it says click. Now, if we wanted to change this, it would be kind of a hassle to do this by hand for each one. So what we're actually going to do is export this to a file. So let's go and save it here, temp. And we're going to open this in Notepad++. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to do a search and replace. So go into search, find, and then we open this. And what we now want to do is we want to replace this with this. So basically it looks for this whole phrase, and there it says click, and we change that to the same phrase except it says press. So we do that, and then we just say replace all. And then we just save it like this. And we close this and then we go back into Blender and we actually delete this one, import the hotkey set, the key map that we just saved. So import that, and now we should have the temp one again. But if we now go into, let's say, object mode, or maybe 3D view, do we have select here? Yes, we do. All right. So now if we go here, you can see select, left mouse, it says press. So that's what we want. And so if we now try this, you can see if I click, it selects immediately, even before I let go of the mouse. So, okay, this is what we want. However, this actually creates some compatibility problems. So you might notice if you go into the outliner and you create another collection, and you try to select multiple objects with Control left click, and then you drag them, this no longer works. So that's a bit of a problem. This actually has to do with the hotkeys being built around click. What we want to do is go into the outliner hotkey for select, and for this one we're actually going to set it back to click again, and we're going to do that for all of the outliner hotkeys for select. So this one also, set it back to click. You can see there's a few different ones. And then same thing in the node editor if we want to go there real quick. So what we're going to do is going to go into node editor here, and we're going to do the same thing for this one. We're going to set this back to click for all these select hotkeys. So click, and click. All right. Let's also do these just in case. Okay. So I believe that should be all of those. Okay, so now shift select is working again. And we can do, yeah, all right, that seems to be correct. Let me check the selection thing first. Yay, that works. Cool. I decided to add one more extra hotkey that wasn't there before, an alternative redo option, Control-Y, because the default is Shift-Control-Z, and obviously Control-Z is undo, because this feels more in line with Windows. So if you're a Windows user, and most Windows programs will use Control-Y for redo. So it's more consistent that way, I think. And that should be everything. And so finally, we do one last export to the final version of the hybrid keys. And now we can get rid of the temp key map here. However, you can see for some reason removing the temp key map that we were working on doesn't actually remove the changes that we've made to the hotkeys. So now what we can do is we can click restore on all of these, and that will remove those changes. However, it won't actually, as you can see, it won't restore all the categories. You also have to go into the subcategories for some reason, which makes no sense, but all right. so you can store all of those as well. Now, if this seems like way too much trouble to reset the default key map, another thing you can do, which is probably the best way of doing this actually, is to just go in here and do load factory preferences. Click again to confirm, and then you see here we're back to the original setup where you have to collapse this preferences panel. So that should reset all your hotkeys. So this will fully clean up the whole key map. However, this will also reset your other changes that you may have made in here. So for example, if you change this or this, you will want to set that back to whatever you had changed it to, or this one. And I think this is set to autosave. Yeah, it is. All right. Another option, of course, is to load factory settings for all of Blender. I don't think that's necessary in this case, but it's an option. So what we want to do now that we have a clean default key map, is go in here and then we say import, and now we open the hybrid keys key map that we had. And so now you should have a clean key map with all the hotkeys that you've just configured. And so the final thing I do before I send this key map out into the wild is I will actually test it out and work with it for a little while. Just sit with it and see if I run into anything weird. And so if I don't find anything wrong with it, I'm going to release it on right-click select and Gumroad. But first, we test.